Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome, and I'm excited. I have Ben Azadi here with Keto Camp, and I'm actually a proud paying member of one of his programs currently as well. So I don't just have him on the show. I believe in him and what he's got going on. We were just talking about how, especially in his world, his space, nutrition, food, eating, health, fitness. There's a lot of different messages out there, and a lot of them contradict each other, and it's hard to know who to trust, who to follow. And thankfully, I've come across Ben through a client of ours, and I've been following him for a while. I've been watching kind of from the weeds, if you would, like checking him out, and he's the real deal. So thank you so much for taking time to be here, Ben. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my absolute pleasure, and I've been watching you too and what you're doing, and I love what you're about. So it's going to be a great collaboration. I could feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. So to start off, I always like to ask what comes to mind for you when you hear championship leadership?
Hmm. I hear 2% because I think
2%.
yeah, because I believe that only 2% of the population has that sort of mindset.
Awesome.
So that's what's the first thing that comes to mind. Yeah, and that just goes back to a quote from Bob Proctor where he said 2% of the population think, 3% of the population think they think, and 95% of the population would rather die than think. So I hear 2% when you say those words.
I love it, man. It's so fun. When I first started this podcast, and when I first started asking that question, I was like, man, I just kind of fell into asking the same question, but it's kind of turned into like what we do on the show here. And I'm like, how many different answers can there really be? But you know what? Like every time it's different. So it's incredible. And that's the first time someone said 2%. I went to 2% milk for some reason.
I'm not talking about that 2%.
Yeah. I was like, really? No. But no, that's great. So Bob Proctor, like is that has he been any kind of an influence inside of your life?
Major, one of the most impactful mentors that I've had. I love his. I've studied him and I still study him like a scientist. Yeah.
Okay. What how did that happen? How did you come across him, and how did he become an influence for you?
Well, I came across him when I was reading a lot of books. I got into books 10 years ago after I was in a very dark place, and books really helped get me out of that dark place. He was one of those authors that I started to read, and I started understanding the law of attraction, the power of your subconscious mind, paradigms, and why we do the things that we do. And we know we shouldn't do this, but why do we do it anyways? And just understanding this awareness and these universal laws. And I just became so fascinated with it because I wasn't taught this in school. I wasn't taught it from my parents. They gave me everything they had, but they didn't have this, so they couldn't teach it to me. So as Bob Proctor started teaching it, and he is an older man in the sense that he's older than I am. He's in his 70s, 80s actually now, but when I was studying him in his 70s, but he had more energy than anybody in their 20s. He was just so energetic, so alive, and he would say, I'm going to speed up as I grow older. I'm not going to slow down. It's a whole bunch of nonsense. And he would show it with his actions. And I was just so inspired from by this guy. And I just started consuming his information, buying his live stream for his seminars, and just getting into his work.
Well, that's cool. As definite championship leader there for sure. And it's interesting the path that we take through our life. But talk to us a little bit. Let the listeners know a little bit more about you and how you got to here today. I'm guessing you didn't start here with Keto Camp, and like, what was your story that led you down this path?
Yeah. I did not start with Keto Camp. I was actually not even in the health and fitness space.
Yeah.
I was the obese kid growing up, bullied, picked on, low self-esteem. You want to talk about being obese? I was both physically and mentally obese. And I was addicted to bad things. I was a really bad child. Hung out with the wrong crowd, did drugs, sold drugs, consumed drugs and video games and anything that was going to just numb me and not let me face reality, which was the fact that I was not living a life on purpose with my purpose. And it wasn't until I hit rock bottom at the age of 24 years old, which was about 10 years ago now, 2008, that I had to make a decision to make a change. And that change led me to first pursuing a way to end my life. And I had suicidal thoughts, and I wanted to end my life because I was going through a really bad breakup, and I was in a dark place, and didn't even want to be in a room by myself because I was afraid of what I would do to myself. So I was on Google looking for ways to kill myself. And every time I pursued that, I thought about my mother, and I thought about what I would leave for her if I ended my life. And I didn't want to do that to my mom. She's been everything for me. So I stopped pursuing that. And I needed to make a decision. Either I was going to keep digging in this hole that I dug myself into, or I was going to climb myself out of the hole. That's where books came into the picture. I mean, you see all these books behind me. Books literally saved my life. I mean, you sent me your book, and I can't wait to dive into this. Yeah. Books saved my life, Nate. I came across Wayne Dyer, and he said, if other people were the cause of your problems, you would have to hire a psychiatrist for the world in order for you to get better. And I was like, damn, that's so true, Wayne. Yeah. So I decided to take control and take responsibility. And 9 months from that moment, I went from 250 pounds to 170 pounds. Wow. I went from 34% body fat to 6% body fat, size 38 waist in my pants to size 30. Finally got a physical six-pack. But you know what was more important than that? I achieved a mental six-pack. Yeah. And that is much more valuable than a physical six-pack. And that started a whole new field of health and fitness. I became a personal trainer, and that's where the story kind of started.
Okay. So you lost all this weight. Like, how did you do it? Again, I'm guessing you didn't really have a lot of information like you do now, like knowledge. You're very knowledgeable. You know what you're talking about. And again, we were talking about it. For someone new like myself, it can be overwhelming, right? Of course, it didn't happen overnight for you either. But like, what got you to where you are today? Like, when did you go out on your own to really start like keto camp? And maybe not even necessarily, I'm sure there might even been a progression, right? Something before keto camp to get you where you were, but like to become really this expert. Like, I look at you as an expert and an authority for sure in your space. How'd you get here?
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, when I started to lose the weight and get healthier, it was the first time in my life that I ever started working out. And I was so embarrassed to even go to a gym that I did all my workouts inside of my house. I did P90X. I did all these different beach body workouts. And I started.
Dr. Horton.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Shout out to Tony Horton, right? Tony Horton.
Tony,
yeah. Shout out to Tony. He did a lot of help for me when I was going through that transition. So I did a lot of that. And on the nutrition component, I was studying just like Men's Health magazine, basic stuff, not necessarily the right information, but it was enough for me to kind of get kick-started with my transformation. And I was doing the whole calories in, calories out, eating every 2 to 3 hours, which got me short-term results, but that didn't give me long-term results. And I ended up having gut issues and acne because I was beating up my liver by eating every 2 to 3 hours. So I lost the weight, but I wasn't really that healthy.
Okay.
Then I started studying the science of nutrition and reading more books and getting into what's going on with the human body. Then I realized that, we're not meant to eat every 2 to 3 hours. It wasn't until the last 75 years or so that started happening. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these big food companies, they promote that because obviously they want to sell more snack foods.
Right.
So I started transitioning away from that, and I started to get healthier as a result of it. But my purpose and my why was not revealed to me until 6 years ago now, where my father ended up getting sick, and he had type 2 diabetes for most of my life. I remember taking him to his doctor's appointments, filling up his medication, taking him to the grocery store every week, filling up his groceries, filling up his medication, making sure he's on top of things, following everything the doctor said. And he just got worse and worse and worse. And he started having what's called diabetic neuropathy. That's where your nerves are starting to get degenerated, and he was losing blood flow to his extremities, to his feet and his toes. So he was having trouble walking, and he had this for years, but it was getting worse this time. So he called me and he told me that he could barely walk. So me and my mother ended up taking him to the ER, the emergency room here in Miami Beach. And he was so afraid of having his feet amputated, because that would be the next step for these diabetic patients.
Yeah.
they would just cut off the feet because they don't want it to go gangrene. And he was so afraid of that. He did not want to lose his feet, that when we took him to the hospital, he was so stressed out from being there that he ended up suffering a massive stroke in the hospital. And they caught it late. He lost the ability to speak. He lost the entire right side of his body. He couldn't function anymore. And he was pretty much bedridden. So I watched his health really rapidly decline from that moment on, to the point where week after week I would visit him, Nate, and his body would just shrink before my eyes. The life would just get sucked out of him each week. And it was August 12th, 2014, a Monday night, that I went to go visit him like I always did.
Mm-hmm.
He was in the worst shape. He was throwing up on himself. He was convulsing. He was shaking. He was hopeless and helpless. And all I wanted was for his suffering to come to an end. So the nurses cleaned him up, and I walked up to him at the end of the night, and I told him that I loved him. I told him that I would always be his son. He'd always be my father forever. And I said, "Hasta la vista, baby," which he used to always say to me when I was a kid from the Terminator.
Yeah.
And I kissed him on the forehead, and I went home that night, and I said a prayer that night, the same prayer that I said every night. And it was the same words, which was, "Please end my father's suffering. He has suffered enough. Please end my father's suffering. He has suffered enough." Just over and over and over. And there was something about this prayer that I felt like there was a connection. Somebody was listening to me. So I went to bed, and the next day I got a phone call on my cell phone around 12 o'clock. And I look at the phone, and it's the caller ID shows that it's the hospital. And I just knew something was up. My heart just sunk right there at that moment. So I pick up the phone, and it was the nurse saying my father stopped breathing that morning, and they couldn't bring him back, and he had passed away. So I sat down on the couch. It was a black leather couch, and I remember my dog. It's very vivid, like it was yesterday. My dog just staring at me. He knew something was up. And a wave of emotions just came over me. A part of me was so relieved that my father is no longer suffering. And then a part of me was facing the reality that my father is no longer with me.
Yeah. So
ever since that moment happened, Nate, I wanted to know what happened to my father. What's happening to America? I mean, 60%, 60 of Americans are diabetic or pre-diabetic.
Wow.
3 out of 4 Americans are obese or overweight. 1 out of 3 Americans get cancer in their lifetime. There is a growing epidemic that we see all around us. And I was on a mission to find out what's going on, what happened to my dad, what's going on in America. So I started consuming books, consuming studies, taking courses, paying people to teach me what they know. And I came to the conclusion that the information that I now share in my books, on stage, that I'm about to share right now on this podcast, is the same information that would have saved my father's life. And I also knew, and I also know that I was given that mountain so I could show the world that this mountain could be moved. And that is my pain to purpose message, because I'm on a mission to educate 1 billion people, because I don't want anybody to have to go through what I had to go through with my dad. He had a lifestyle disease that was treated with medication. Huge mismatch right there. So I'm on a mission to educate and cut through all that noise. And that's why I do what I do, Nate.
Oh, it's incredible, man. Thank you for sharing that. Very powerful message. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that would that have and do have every single day experiences like that, and really just go on with their lives, right? They really, it's not good or bad, like not judging by any means, but just to hear for you, just how that has impacted you, right? Like how you're like, man, I'm going to do something about this. And to take that experience and in a way, it's like to honor your father by going out and hoping to help others not have to go through that same experience, right? To learn from that. I think that's really, when we talk about championship leadership, that's what that is all about. It's like taking those experiences and not letting them be for nothing, but actually taking them and using them to move you forward and to impact. And your vision is big. Did you say 1 billion with a B?
Yeah, 1 billion with a B.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. We need more like you out there for sure.
Thank you.
where did that, like, so some pretty staggering numbers, right? 60% are diabetic or pre-diabetic, I believe you said. 1 in 4 will have cancer.
So right now the stats are 1 in 3 end up getting some form of cancer throughout their lifetime, and they're predicted that in 10 years it's going to be 1 in 2.
I was just going to say those numbers are not going the other way, right? They're like going.
Yeah, right now, I mean,
the wrong
if I have
direction.
anything to do with it, I'm going to put a dent in those numbers. I'm going to put a dent in disease. But right now, or at least the last 20 years or so, they're going the wrong direction.
Well, let's talk more about this because, again, you know, from a leadership perspective, right? Vision is huge, and not just vision, not just seeing that there's a problem, but the willingness to actually do something about it, like to take action, and not just any action. Like I call it decisive execution. Like we're gonna move on this thing, and we're gonna go, and I don't care what anybody else is doing or what they're saying. Like I'm very clear on what I want, and I'm gonna go and do it. So what is that like? What does that look like? Do you know how that looks for you? Do you have a plan? Tell us more on that.
I love that. I love that mindset you have. Championship leadership. I love your style, man. Yeah. So first and foremost is I write down, and I always update this. What are my highest values? And then I make sure my daily actions are aligned with that. And anything that's not aligned with my highest values, I say no to. So it prevents me from committing to things that are not aligned with what I want to do, which has been a huge distraction for me in the past. So that means people, that means vacations, that means a lot of things, because the way I see it is I'm blessed, and now I have to go prove it. My parents immigrated from Iran in the 70s, and I could have an entirely different life. So I know that I'm blessed to have this opportunity, but I know that I'm blessed, and I'm going to prove it. I'm not just saying I'm blessed and I'm going to rest on my laurels and stay comfortable. I'm going to prove it. So what that looks like is, you know, a mentor once told me, if you know the path to accomplishing your vision, your goal, by definition, it's too small. So I don't know the exact path. I just know that I have my highest values, and I take massive action each day, and it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. So that's how I'm doing it.
Well, that's certainty, right? I mean, we talk all the time, like confidence and certainty, and many people talk about like confidence, but like, are you confident that you have a right hand, or are you certain that you have a right hand? Like I'm certain that I have a right hand, right? And just to hear that in you, that you're like, I don't know how it's going to happen. Like I have no idea. I just know that it's going to happen. That's incredible. I love that. So that's what I call power and certainty. And you have to have that. Again, championship leaders, like willing to most want to wait for the path to be laid in front of them. Most want to wait for someone to pave the path. And then the championship leaders like yourself are going to go out and be like, there isn't a path for what I'm about to do. Like I'm going to go blaze that trail. I'm going to go find it and make that path. And if others want to follow me along the way, you know, go ahead. But like, I'm not waiting. So incredible. I love it. Who are some current, maybe some leaders, mentors, coaches that you have to help you to go accomplish this huge vision and mission that you have right now? Who are some people that are really impacting your world and helping you to get there?
Yeah, well, number one is my coach and mentor, Dr. Daniel Pompa, who I believe he's one of the most brilliant men in the health space. And he's a master at the cellular metabolism, detoxing at a cellular level. And he coaches me. He coaches a group of 40 plus doctors, actually. He calls it the Platinum Group. And I'm one of them, even though I'm not a doctor, I'm in that group. And I get to pick his brain each week. I'm going to Park City, Utah next week to learn from him. So Dr. Dan Pompa is such a huge impact and role in what I'm doing.
Okay. And how did you come across him? Just research and just being in that space? And
yeah, I've studied him for years, and I attended one of his conferences in Boca Raton, Florida last year. And then I went back to one of his conferences in Las Vegas last November, and it was just a calling. And I know from Bob Proctor that whenever I have a decision to make and that decision scares the crap out of me, like it makes my heart skip a beat and there's a lot of fear there, it's usually the right decision for me. It's like I lean into it, as scary as it is,
Yeah.
as scary as it is. So I was at the conference, and he was talking about how he wants to grow a team of 300 doctors, essentially people who are going to change the world. And I want to change the world. And I love what this guy has to say. So I felt this calling, and we partnered up. And then that was back in November. So that was 8-9 months ago. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's how
Yeah,
it
that was
happened.
going to be my next question is like, obviously you can't do this alone. Maybe not obviously, but like to impact a billion people the way you want to, you need an army, you need a team. So yeah, do you have a team right now, or is that kind of part of that process? Maybe you're part of his team, or I see you like, is there a plan to certify like a bunch of Ben Azadis to take the keto camp message out to the world, or is it
Yeah.
you right now? Like paint that picture for me a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Great question. And I agree. It's nearly impossible to do it on your own. You got to have a team. You have such a bigger reach and impact with a team that are aligned with your values. And
Yeah.
I know you know all about that. So yes, I'm working with Dr. Pompa. I'm working with a group of doctors, and also I have my Keto Camp Inner Circle, which is an online group health coaching program similar to the one that you're in. The way I see it, Nate, is everything that I do, all my programs, the one that you're in,
Yep.
educating the members of these programs, educating my community, so they understand this work and they could share it with their community, their family, and that's going to be the ripple effect that just spreads like wildfire. So that's number one.
Okay.
And yeah, developing a team for sure. I want to employ many people. I want people to. I want to create jobs for people based off of what I'm doing. So that's definitely a goal, to grow my team and make it bigger. And then, yeah, eventually have maybe Keto Camp certified coaches. That's definitely a vision of mine as well. So absolutely, 100%. I want to continue to expand and grow, because either we're creating or we're disintegrating. Nothing stays.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for sure.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you. What's maybe a turning point in your life? And I know maybe you've already talked about them, but this is a question I'll ask a lot. There's many points in our life, and there's usually one or two that definitely jump out to us where you could very easily have gone left, like again, where everybody else, kind of the masses, choose to go, and then there's this path to the right that very few or none are willing to really take. That, you know, had you taken the easy route, you could very easily be somewhere completely different in your life versus where you are today. You know, I'm a true believer that certain things happen in our life for a reason and get us to where we are today. Is there anything that really sticks out to you as that moment in life where, you know, you took that bold stand and because of that, you're here today?
Yeah, a couple of things most recently pop out to me. Number one is, up until a year ago, I used to own a CrossFit gym here in Miami.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I owned it for 5 years, and it was great. I love the community. I love CrossFit, but I had to trade time for money. I was going in, I had a staff, and my reach was limited going to a physical location.
Yeah.
So I made a decision that I wanted to expand and do everything online and reach the world. So that decision right there was a scary one at the time, but it's been one of the best decisions I ever made in my life, because I would not be doing the things that I'm doing right now if I hadn't walked away from that. So I cherish the moments there. I cherish the relationships I made there, but just making that decision to go online and impact more people, total game changer for me. And then secondly, now that I am online and I'm taking massive action, if anybody follows me on social media, you're going to see that.
Yeah.
I get a lot of people that don't agree. Not a lot of people. There's some people that don't agree with my message. We have the conventional way of thinking, and I understand that too. And I have no hate for them, and I have nothing negative to say about them. But they can't say the same thing about me. Sometimes I'll get heat.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll get people saying nasty things, and I'm so convicted, as you said, conviction versus confidence. I'm so convicted in who I am, what I'm gonna stand for, what I'm doing in this world, that those comments now deflect off of me like water off of a fish. 2 years ago, those would have paralyzed me.
Yeah.
So just seeing my progress, and it doesn't really affect me at all. If you're not aligned with my mission, then I'm gonna block you on social media.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I mean, if you don't have those people in your life, then you're probably not taking a bold enough stand, especially for what you're going to have people that aren't going to believe or are going to be haters or are going to disagree. And I think that's just embracing that like you have is important, because there's going to be way more of those in the years to come as you continue down that path to impact 1 billion people. So I love that. Talk a little bit more about the CrossFit gym. So did you own that yourself? Did you have a partner? Like,
Yeah,
and
I had a
not
couple,
necessarily don't talk about the CrossFit gym, but like just the decision, right? Very comfortable, probably comfortable place, doing okay. Could have continued that path and played it safe versus what you really want to do, like your life's mission. And to take that big leap is not one that should be glossed over, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I had a couple of partners, and yeah, I was doing its thing. I had my steady paycheck coming in, and it could have been really easy to stay and do that and
Yeah.
continue with that. But I just had that tugging at my heartstrings, man. I wanted to go out there and make a huge impact. So it actually wasn't until I did something called Landmark Education.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Landmark?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
So I did Landmark, and I was completing my curriculum last year, and I was finishing a program called Self-Expression and Leadership. And one of the classes, the instructor, the leader of the program, her name was Judy. She was great. She said, well, we had to kind of investigate our life and see what has been going on in our life that we wanted to make it. We've been thinking about deciding on making a decision, but we haven't made a decision. It's been in the back of our head. And that was one of the things, like the gym, it was just not working with me and my business partners. The alignment wasn't there. So I decided, based off of that course, it gave me the inspiration to say, you know what, it is not serving me anymore. So I could either stay in this comfort zone and let it kind of suck my soul away, or I could make a decision to get out of it, because we live in America. At least I live in America. And we have the freedom to control our environment. So I said, I'm going to control my environment and I'm going to leave. So that's exactly what happened.
That's an incredible story. I love it. Yeah, I had a very similar decision for myself just 1.5 years ago when I was on an insurance brokerage for years and years, and wanted to do what I'm doing today, which is coaching and speaking and an author and impacting lives. Very similar to you, just in a different way, right? And I was very comfortable. Like I could have very easily just stayed where I was at, and I did not love insurance by any means, but provided a decent living, and but I just was not fulfilled at all. So for a lot, I think that decision would have been much more difficult. And from the outside looking in, a lot of people probably say like, "Oh, how could you do that? To take that huge, no guarantees and no leap, and to go after what you want." But I'm like, how could I not, right? And I just, yeah. Some people have it, I guess, and some people don't, or just willing to take those chances. And Landmark, like you said, I think is probably something very familiar with them. And I haven't gone through any of the courses, but I know plenty that have that to help you position yourself to be able to do some of that. But what are some main characteristics to you that really step out? Like when you look at somebody for a coach, as a mentor, or someone that you look up to in that as a championship leader, like what are some of the characteristics that really stick out to you, or even that are important to you that you exude as you lead others as well?
Yeah, great question. And I didn't know that about the insurance. I acknowledge you for making the scary decision to disconnect from that.
Yeah,
and now look what you're doing. You're impacting so many lives. So I love that. What do I look for to coach? I want my coach to have a coach, for sure. I think that's important.
I tell my clients all the time, like, if your coach doesn't have a coach, like, go find another coach.
Yeah,
Like,
I think it's a red flag if your coach does not have a coach, because that means he or she is kind of stopped growing, and everything's evolving, everything's changing. So I want my coach to be learning as much as I'm learning from my coach. So number one, and then I want my coach to have something that I want in terms of knowledge. Do they have the knowledge that I want to have? Like, do they have something? Are they living a life that I want to live?
Mm-hmm.
Relationships. They're making an impact with their community. They're donating to, they're doing the right things. So if they have the things I want, then I want to learn how to get that. So I look for that. Who I don't take advice from is somebody who doesn't live a life that I want. And that could be a family member. That could be even friends from the past. I never take advice from anybody who does not have something I want.
Yeah.
And that right there is something most people don't do. I'm sure you get that all the time. Yeah, because family members, they have such huge impacts and impact over us.
Yeah.
But they don't necessarily have what we want, right? So I'm sure you get that a lot, do you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I say that all the time too, right? Like I'm going to be very careful who you take your advice from, like your inner circle, if you will, right? There's your loved ones, your family, like your spouse, your significant other, maybe even your parents, your kids. There's those that are paying you, right? I'm willing to take feedback and perspective from those that are willing to pay me, and like my clients, and then the other one would really just be those that I'm paying, right? My coaches, and then anything outside of that, really, yeah, I'm going to be very, very careful on who I listen to and who I don't, because they're not where I am, or they're not going where I'm wanting to go.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. And it's easier to say it than actually when you're in that situation to do it.
For sure.
And the way I look at it, and I've seen this for myself, so I'm speaking from my experience, when you start to change, whether it is you're starting to lose weight and get healthier, or you're starting a side job to get you away from the corporate life, whatever it is that you're changing, you become a threat to everybody in your life who does not change, right? You start putting a mirror on them, and they're like, oh, look at Ben doing all these things, and I kind of quit on that a few years ago. So they love you, but they really love themselves, and it's the whole crabs in a bucket story. You put several crabs in a bucket, you don't have to put a lid on that bucket, because a crab tries to escape, the other crabs grab it back down.
Right? Yeah.
So what we need to be aware of are not the haters, which we talked about earlier, commenting us. They're very obvious, and we could just whatever with them, ignore them. It's the naysayers, right? It's the friends and family that say, why do you want to do that? You have a safe job, or that's a little bit dangerous. Why would you invest in that? Or you should just be happy, or you should just be satisfied. That's what we should be aware of, because that's very dangerous if we start accepting that as our reality, because nobody's living my life. Nobody's living your life. Whatever is highest on your values is what you should take action on, not somebody else's values. And that is something that I highly believe in, because I don't want to be on my deathbed that regret that I could have lived a life true to myself. Instead, I wanted to please everybody else but myself. So that's a very important lesson.
Yeah, I've had that conversation with a few guests here recently, actually, and it's not even that they're trying to do it purposefully, right? It might even be coming from a good place. Like, they're just worried about you, right? They want to keep you safe, and they've never been willing to do that for themselves in their life. And so just the thought of it is like, you're doing what? You're giving up this for what? Like, are you crazy? And they just, if you're not careful, like you said, man, you're just going to let them pull you back down right where they're at. So that's powerful message.
Yeah.
What's as we wrap this up here, what are one or two things that you could really leave with the listeners here? And, my listeners, I think a lot of them are business owners, small business owners, entrepreneurs, or that's something that they want for themselves, for their lives, right? They might be like that side hustle you're just talking about, trying to find a way to make that break, to take that jump, to take that leap. Also, people are just looking to grow and continue, like we talked about. If you're not growing, you're dying. And what will be one or two things that you could leave with the listeners here before we wrap up?
Yes. I would say if everything that you want on the outside, it all starts on the inside. So if you could control your mindset, right, this championship leadership mentality, and have that run your life instead of that paradigm of your past experiences, the awareness is going to be what we need here. So developing the awareness to know when a thought comes in, is this thought serving my future, or is it a result of a past experience? Because I could tell you this, once you have the awareness, you could choose the thought that's going to serve your future and not a thought that's a result of a past experience. So for me, whenever I have a self-limiting belief, a negative thought, I understand what's going on because I have the awareness. I've done the work that I say, thank you. I acknowledge it and I choose a better thought. So I would just highly recommend developing this awareness, and you could do it with the coaching of Nate. You could do it with books. You could do it with these mentors who are doing things to help you develop this awareness. When you do, nothing could affect you. Honestly, nothing in the world could affect you. Getting into a car accident, a fender bender, having your internet go out during an important meeting. When things like that happen, you don't let outside circumstances control your inside circumstance. It's such a power that I'm getting better and better at, because the truth of the matter is that there's nothing out on the outside of us that's ever going to help us or hurt us. It's what's on the inside. Nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So I would say develop a rock solid mental six-pack in everything you want with your business, with your health. Anything you want will come into fruition. And that's what I would leave you with.
Oh, thank you. Mental six-pack, by the way. Do you have a book? That sounds like a book to me, like mental six-pack.
I should write that book,
you
right?
Should, that should be your next book, man. I just hit me. I was like, man, he's got to write a book about the mental six-pack. I love that.
Yeah, I love
That's
it too.
Awesome.
Thanks.
And great message. Thank you. What are a few ways that we can find out about you and what you're up to? Like I said, and like we talked about a little bit, I'm a part of a 7-week program that you got going on right now, but I know you have some other things that you're doing, and I see you speaking all the time, and you are all over social media, by the way. Like, you ain't lying about that. So I love it. Constantly communicating powerful message. So yeah, tell us how we can find you.
Thanks. So I teach a lot about the keto diet. I use the keto diet as a tool. I teach about intermittent fasting, block fasting. I teach a lot of a holistic approach to health, and my YouTube channel would be a great resource. So if you go to youtube.com/keto camp, and that's camp with a K, definitely that's a great resource. And then if you want to follow me on social media, Instagram is probably best. So if you go to Instagram and put or just put the Ben Azadi, so THE and then my full name, definitely connect with me on Instagram and send me a message. Let me know that you heard me on Nate's podcast. I'll give you a follow back, and any questions you have, I'm very open and I answer every single question. You might even get a video response from me as well. So those would be the two places to find me.
I've been on the receiving end of one of those as well. So he ain't lying. The video message, that is, when he got my book. So yeah, appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your day to come on the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, Nate, I want to, before we sign off here, I want to acknowledge you and what you're doing and how you're empowering people to make an impact with their life, which is going to impact their family and their community. And what you're doing is beyond what you could even comprehend. It's such a ripple effect. In your work, I'm just getting into your work now, and I'm really inspired by you. And Danielle Slosby, who's also my client and your client, speaks highly of you. So I want to applaud you and acknowledge you. And anybody who's listening to this right now, just know you have yourself a stand-up human being that you're following. And I'm just grateful to share this with you, this interview, and do more collaborations as well. So I want to say thank you too, brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And I didn't even set that up. Like, I'm not paying him for anything for that. But no, thank you for that. I really, really do appreciate it. And yeah, I look forward to further collaborations in the future together with you as well. So thank you so much, man.
Thank you, brother.